Hi, I'm Neil. I've lost my job a few times, and I know where the mind can go in those situations. It starts to turn into a story about who you are and what your future holds. In this series, I want to help you notice those thoughts, unhook from those stories a bit, and take your next step. This first video is all about noticing our thoughts. Before we try to fix anything, apply for anything, find a new job, we're going to look at where the mind goes during a job loss. After you've lost your job, what does your mind do? I want to be very clear here. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not trying to give you psychology diagnoses or things like that. But I've been through job loss, and honestly, I think it was one of the hardest times of my life. Please see previous videos on my channel about suicidal ideation. But I've realized that there are tips and tricks, and which makes it sound so glib, but there are strategies that I've seen work for people who have lost their jobs, lost a loved one, who are dealing with recovering from abuse of childhood trauma. And there's commonalities there in being able to, regardless of what puts you into the situation of where your mind goes, that there are common strategies that help the human mind, the same mind you have and I have, that help climb out of that pit, go through that dark stretch of road. And that's what I want to show. I am not the source of the light here, but I want to be able to point you towards some quality and trustable sources and my thoughts on them. Job loss is not just the losing of a job. It very quickly ties into self-worth, identity, and can be really tricky to untangle those things. It turns into an event that really honestly triggers your nervous system. It really triggers your body in a way that you may hear that and think, well, that's stupid, right? Getting triggered or, okay, I understand that. But do you feel calm? Do you feel at peace? Maybe, right? I certainly haven't raged out and yelled at people during a job loss, right? That classic, the HR guy comes up and says, "Hi, do you have a moment to speak?" Yeah, yeah, I do. Ugh. I can feel that, right? I can feel like my body start to tense, a tightness in my chest, my blood pressure rises, right? My emotions start to, you may hear it in my voice. Ooh, I'm getting kind of emotional. But I want us to be able to notice those things and to start to explore what is it about that event that really triggers things for us? Or what is it about that event that we can understand better so that we can begin to process those things and digest them in a healthy way instead of just trying to shove them away or to let them uh, really rule our action, right? To get fused with. The mind goes to stories like they wronged me, I'm the victim, right? Or maybe that they are the objective source of truth and I really do stink, right? The imposter syndrome sneaks back up in here and says, see, I knew you weren't good at your job or you chose the wrong career path 20 years ago. By the way, these are all thoughts that I experience. And see, this is just proof positive that you should have chosen something else and you didn't. That was a mistake. You can't change it and you're stuck. You're stuck where you are right now. In ACT, that's what we're talking about here, acceptance commitment therapy. The useful idea here is to notice fusion. Fusion in ACT, in kind of the therapy speak side of things, talks about how when we have an initial thought, because our mind is always presenting thoughts, it's its job, right? The heart is meant to pump. I don't know, the lungs are meant to, transfer like oxygen from the air into the bloodstream and, things like that. The mind is always presenting thoughts. So the thought is, okay, I woke up today, I don't have a job. And then stories come in, right? The thought, the brain presents more thoughts and we start to fuse with some of these. We say, oh, I don't have a job. And that means that I am bad. It means that I'm lazy. It means that I'm a crappy do of work, or I made a mistake in career path, etc. It means that I have no hope for the future. If you've thought some of these, you're not alone. This is a common place where the mind went in this. It's trying to keep us safe, but doing so in a way that isn't particularly helpful. Because when I feel that way, I don't act. I don't move towards anything. I just sit there and think, this is impossible. There's no hope for this. And that's what we're trying to move towards. But before we get there, noticing those thoughts is incredibly important. This idea that we had an initial observation, right? The mind is observing something. It is an objective truth that when you lose your job, you don't have a job anymore. Okay. And then the mind starts to think about the things that, ooh, what does this mean? Ooh, well, I'm gonna need some money. I'm gonna need, I'm not gonna see some of those friends anymore. And you may have this weird experience that I have had, where you're feeling like, well, some of those people, I didn't want to see them anymore. Ugh. And then you also go, oh, some of those people I did. It's a very strange experience to see that, and uh, honestly, to not be aware of it, and your mind just goes to, see, this is why you're a bad friend, because you won't call those people that you do like, and you're kind of a judgmental jerk because, maybe you could have liked those people more, or maybe your mind goes, yeah, good riddance, all of them, they're all dead to me, they're all jerks, they never supported me. These are thoughts my mind has had. This is not, I'm not making up examples. This is legit what I have experienced. To be able to recognize that, well, wait, there was the instigating thought. That was the, you don't have a job. The part of the mind that is trying to help you is the part that wants to use some degree of stress to motivate you, which stress is not inherently a bad thing. It's a function of the body. Recognizing that, well, yeah, I don't have a job, and that is a thing that brings things I value, money, career, aspirations, like fine. But that's just the observation. It's the coloring that we add to it, right? A lot of Eastern religions talk about the idea of coloration, that there are the objective truths of life, and then there are the things that we color on top of them. We put layers on top of them. In ACT, Russ Harris, one of the psychologists who has made a lot of good YouTube videos and furthered the idea of ACT, acceptance commitment therapy, talks about how we tend to make ourselves suffer more because we think, oh, I feel this thing, right? I don't have a job, okay? And I feel sad about that. And then I feel stupid because I feel sad. And then I feel guilty because I feel stupid about feeling sad. And then I feel anger about feeling, you get the point, right? Adding those layers on top, it tends to take us into a very, we are the enemy and we have to fight against our own selves in a strange internal fight or flight kind of loop. When we start to instead notice our thoughts, that's when we can perhaps explore other ways to consider things. The goal here is not to prove yourself right or wrong. It's not about looking at your mind and saying, my mind is wrong in this story, or this story in my mind is totally correct. It's about just observing. My mind just told me a story. One of my most favorite points that really solidified this for me is that your thoughts are real, but they're not necessarily true or false. They're simply stories. And the person, this was Dr. K of Healthy Gamer GG, a channel I love. He went on to say, if your thoughts are real, and that's all that you have to do to, bend reality to your whim, um, then think yourself a millionaire. Have you done it yet? Think yourself to find a new job. Have you done it yet? Now, to make sure that this doesn't come across as obnoxious or glib, uh, I have definitely caught myself thinking myself into finding a new job when I'm unemployed. And even still, as I'm thinking about that experience and telling you, I feel some embarrassment. I feel some self-consciousness. I feel, uh, I mean, I guess I feel some humor, having caught in, yeah, yeah, okay, that's totally what I do. But the key part here is I want you to notice that your mind presents stories, and the goal here is to not fight with your mind, but to instead pause and say, my mind is telling me the story of, or my mind is telling me this thought. I want us to pause here. We've talked a while about some of these things, and I find that if you're like me, uh, aka if you're a human, when I think about these things, I tend to feel very tight in my chest. I feel my blood pressure go up. Uh, I mean, I love talking about this stuff, but I still find that I need so much practice, aka I'm not particularly great at this yet, where my mind goes to, it latches onto, ooh, that one guy, yeah, I think he had it out for me. And that's why, ooh, and oh, my manager, he could have told me sooner, or he could have stressed that I was actually going to lose my job instead of, smiling and everything was great. I didn't understand. Right, right. We're not quite there yet where we want to dig into what those things could be. And maybe we don't even want to dig into those things. But I do want us to pause and think of the stories. A great way to get my mind into a better space for creativity and for being able to examine these things with a bit more open-mindedness instead of feeling that tight in the chest, fused, kind of me in the sardine can of my own mind, just tight in there, is to do an exercise that's all about grounding. Right now, grounding is kind of, the fancy therapy speak for just the idea of kind of getting out of the kind of the neurotic thought patterns, right? The like I'm stuck in my head and thinking repeatedly, right? Just in like I'm wearing a rut into the carpet of my mind, thinking these exact same thoughts, and practicing this technique of being able to kind of come back to this moment. And essentially it's the five senses, right? So we want to start with, and let's go through this here. We want to sit up straight, right? Put your feet on the floor if you can, right? I'm sitting on my couch here, but you could sit in a chair. Don't stress about the location. There's nothing magic about my couch or your office seat at home, or your kitchen table, bench, or whatever. Just sit where you can be comfortable. You can sit up and kind of relaxed, but still sitting somewhat straight up kind of position. So I want you to take a deep breath in. And then one more little breath at the top. And let it out slowly. Found that that really helps to start to calm me. So I want you to notice five things around you, right? So for me, I see a potted plant there. Um, I have a microphone I'm talking to. I see a little flashing light as I talk. Um, I see another couch. I notice I notice my dilapidated cushions on the couch. Okay. Now I want you to notice four things you can feel. So maybe wiggle your toes. I can feel my feet, feel my socks and my skin. My hand is resting on my leg and I can feel the fabric there. I can feel the couch cushions kind of unevenly underneath my rump, my keister. Um, I want you to notice 3 things you can hear. I can hear the fan that I think I'm wishing I would have turned off before recording. Story, careful there. We're just noticing what we can hear. I can hear traffic outside my house as cars occasionally pass by. I can hear a clock tick. Now I want you to notice 2 things you can smell. This always is a little tricky for me. Maybe I have sinus issues, or don't overthink it here. I can smell, I think, a bit of maybe laundry detergent in my clothes a little bit, and I can smell some dishes in the sink. And I'm not thinking about what to do with those dishes. I'm just smell some dishes. Now notice one thing you can taste. For me, I can taste a bit of the curry leftover that I had from yesterday. And again, I can tell you about how somebody was nice and took me out to lunch, and it's like, right. But we're noticing this moment. So we're just saying, my mouth tastes a bit like curry. I'll take another deep breath in with one at the top. Slowly out. Now notice how your mind feels. Notice that there's a slight calm. Now, what's great about this is that you're a smart person. I know you're capable of recognizing. Your mind can still point out, hey, we still don't have a job. Yep, we don't. And we want to fix that. But where we are now just got a little bit calmer. Now, as you notice the calmness, I think this might be skipping ahead a little bit, but I want you to come back and watch the rest of these videos. But spoiler alert, the calmness is a key part of being able to move from feeling stuck and very fused, welded together with the scary stories that the mind has presented, to be able to observe them and detach from them, unhook from them, as the therapies speak says, and being able to then, once we have unhooked from them, move towards an action that will take us forward in some way. So at this point, I want to give us a little bit of homework, but don't. I kind of hate the word homework, but don't get wrapped up in that. But I want you to have an exercise. I want you to notice your thoughts. I want you to notice over the next day, right, next hour, however long till you come and join me again for the next video. Take a moment. I'd even recommend coming back the next day and checking out the next video. Let it digest a bit in your mind what we've talked about. Notice the stories your mind tells you and practice. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to change them. You don't even have to run away from them. It's not about getting away or changing or silencing. It's just practicing. There's that story again. Oh, there's that story that my mind is telling me I won't find a job. Okay. There's that story that my mind's telling me that those people who fired me, they're jerks. Okay. There's that story that my mind is telling me that I'm unlovable, or that this is somehow that this is, this says something about me, says I'm I'm genius and misunderstood. I'm crappy and too understood. There's no hope for me. These are all stories that the mind is telling us. And I just want us to practice looking at them. And when we see them, to simply say, that's my mind telling me the story of dot, dot, dot. Noticing your thoughts is not the solution to everything, but it is so incredibly powerful to be able to move out of being stuck and feeling like you are locked into wearing that rut in the carpet of your mind, and being able to say, I'm going to step back and notice when I do that. Then we'll be able to move on to things that allow us to consider and to act. So, thank you for joining me. Again, my name is Neil Oler. I'm with you in this. It is hard to lose your job. It is really easy to get that stuff tied to your identity. So please consider the homework, work on noticing your thoughts, and I'll see you again next time.